Cool, it's my last talk and I think everybody's tired. So how many of you just want me to go out of the stage and you can go home? So I won't take much of a time, I'll basically, it's not a very technical talk I'm giving. It's a very generic talk which I thought very useful to you guys because when I was student, nobody told me that. So, I thought I was sharing with you. So, in server client architecture, right, we do this ping pong test. You send a ping and you get a pong. If you don't get a pong, that means there is a connection problem. So if I say ping, you say pong, then I realize I have all of your attention, okay? Ping? Okay, good. So do you want a break, 5 minutes, or do you want me to continue? Okay, so that you can finish quickly, right? Okay. If you want a break, that's fine. We can go for 5 minutes break. No? Okay. So there was a picture I shared here. Can you guys guess what it is? It's Linux distributions, right? So I'll just zoom in a little bit. So this is just Debian, okay? And then you can see these ones. You can see Ubuntu. I think this is Ubuntu. Is it visible? Wow. What is wrong with people, right? So there are a lot of crazy people out there. So this is Slackware. And here is Red Hat. I think the highest has Debian, has highest forks, and I think second would be Red Hat. And you can see Red Hat Enterprise Linux. And there is SUSE, Fedora, blah, blah. So question, how many of you use Linux distribution on a laptop? Raise your hands. Hardly 15 people. And I think rest of the people don't use it because it's difficult. What is it? Shout. It's difficult to use? Sorry? Go ahead. Not so user friendly. Okay, that's kind of right. Maybe right. Maybe because a lot of people started with Windows, And how many of you want to contribute to open source projects? Not many. Okay, no problem. So do you guys know, if you contribute to open source projects, it goes to a resume. And if you have open source contribution in resume, there is a 90% higher chance that you will get recruited by other companies. Do you know that? No, you don't know that? Okay, we'll find out. So about me, I started contributing to free software and open source. So free software and open source, two different things. Open source software is a subset of free software. Free as in freedom, not as in free as in good for free. Most of the time happens like that, but it's the nature of it. But the free word means freedom, not the free as in you don't have to pay for it. It's not that. And so I started contributing to 2011, and guess what? The same year, I think, couple of months before I started using a Linux distribution full time. So I had a dual boot system. I went to PyCon. I realized that all the Python programmer I liked, admired, they all run Linux distribution. I said, enough of it. Go to home, uninstall Windows completely, and start using Linux. And couple of months later, I started feeling, wow, this couple of people who are not even employed by a company can create such an amazing operating system. Then what I'm doing here? Let me contribute to something to that, and figure out. I want to be a contributor to the society, I want to be somebody who can contribute to the society, feel good about it, that I did something better for the society. Also, along with that, I get paid for it so that I can maintain my lifestyle and my family, right? So I started contributing to open source and then figure out, okay, I want to do it full time. So I moved to Red Hat before 3.5 years. So it almost more than, I think, around 6 years I've been contributing to Wikipedia. I sometimes go edit articles there. Add articles, Glusterfest. I was started as a tester there. I contributed documentation. I contributed to RPM packaging. I fixed bugs. I participated in design discussions. I think most of evangelism, everything I've done for Glusterfest. Then Fedora, CentOS, so enough about me. Okay, so what is the current state of open source software? Do you know that in Google, right? How many people use Google here? Everybody? Okay. So do you know Google's all infrastructure runs on top of Linux? It's basically a modified Debian distribution, okay? And all the software Google uses, most of them are open source software. Even Facebook, they use all open source softwares. So guess what? If you wouldn't have open source software, we wouldn't have Google in first place, and you are using all the services free. You don't have to pay for it. And I mean, the amount of innovation we've seen from Google, all because of open source software. I mean, obviously their effort is there. I'm not saying, I mean, it's not like that. But most of the software they run is mostly open source software. Facebook, Google, Amazon completely runs on Gen virtualization. Anybody heard of Gen virtualization here? Sorry? Heard of it? Okay, so virtualization technology, there is KVM, Gen, then is VMware virtualization. So Gen, Amazon uses mostly on Gen. So any big software company you talk about, it mostly runs on open source software. So they're looking for open source software developers because it's not a traditional software development we do in open source, it's a little different. So we need different qualities for people, like they have to be very self-motivated, they need to find a passion in that, so all this stuff comes along with it. So how many of you have account in GitHub? Raise your hands. Very less. You should go to home today. If you want to become a software engineer, right? Seriously, if you want to become a software engineer, go home today, read about GitHub, and open an account there. 20 million software projects, open source software projects present there. You can contribute to any of it, and you can put them in your resume. So, this couple of slides are not going to take much time. So, free software is not about free as in free, we don't have to pay. But it's about it's the freedom it gives you for the developer or the user along with it, right? So, for example, let's say you are a student, you want to know about something. You go to a professor and ask, sir, I want to know about this. And he says, no, I cannot give you the knowledge. Because you have to pay me, or maybe I am contract with somebody, I cannot tell you the information. How do you feel? I will feel very disgusted because I want to know something and somebody is not giving me the information, I feel really bad. So that's what happened, right? If you go to, I mean, Windows is a good operating system, but think about if you want to go and read the Windows kernel code, can you read it? You don't have the source code anywhere, right? You want to read about maybe the CPU scheduler, maybe the memory management, anything. You cannot read anything about it. Even if you buy an advanced Windows internal book, still you won't get much information. I tried that. But go to internet and search for Linux kernel code. Search for Linux, how Linux CPU scheduling works, how Linux memory management works. You get all the information with code snippet. Why? Exactly, because it's open source and anybody can write blogs. I write blogs. I didn't write blogs to, just to make sure that people, if I know something, I want to communicate my knowledge to others, I read blogs. And people read about it, and people have told me, thanked me for that, Hey, your article helped me, great, thank you. So it feels really great. So how many people, I'm pretty sure you must be using VLC media player, right, a lot of you? And do you know VLC is open source software? And if you're finding a bug, if you fix it, and there's millions of people who are using VLC will feel definitely good about it. Will you feel good about it that you helped so many people? Awesome. And you are not helping, obviously you're helping people, if you feel good about it, it improves your technical skills, and it improves your job and everything. Because ultimately people pay for your skills, not for your college degree, believe me. So free software is in, you have 4 degrees of freedom. You can read about it. So the idea is, if you buy a software, you should have all the freedom to modify it. For example, let's say if you buy something from the market, if you don't like it, right, you can take this part out and you can use the only part you like about it. So something like that, free software, you should have the freedom to modify it. So to modify it, you need the source code. So source code is a precondition, right? So you have Linux kernel, let's say, there are like hundreds of drivers. So for your laptop, you just need only 10 drivers. So what you can do, you can recompile it, take out the rest 90 of it, so it becomes thin, and you use only what you want. Let's say you don't like a feature, you can disable it, while you can recompile the code from the beginning. And open source does not mean that only the source code is available. There is a lot of precondition to that. The reason the source code needs to be available, because others should have the freedom to basically modify it. So if you go to open source initiative page, so these are the rules to call a software open source. Free redistribution, people should derive from your work, and there's a lot of laws and rules around it. So it's just not publishing source code does not make it open source. You should let other people to modify, basically become a community project where people can come and contribute. So, so there are a lot of Linux distributions, right? Ubuntu, Fedora, CentOS. I'm pretty sure you might have heard of Ubuntu, Fedora, and all these distributions. The important question is why I need to use a Linux distribution. So one of the questions I heard from mostly freshers is like, how do I find a project to work on? How do I solve real life issues, real life problems, right? I mean, there are like, okay, Infosys employs like maybe 1 lakh, maybe 2 lakh employees, right, to solve software problems. TCS has 3 lakhs. I just wonder when I was a student, okay, what these 10 lakhs people are doing, really it's a problem? Because in college, right, we individually work on a project. And there are like 10 lakhs of people working on projects. What kind of project they work on? Why there is so much work? And believe me, nobody could give me a real answer, because the answer is just not one line, right? It's a context. You need to understand the context of what exactly they're trying to solve. And when you're a student, you want to see what exactly the so many engineers in all the companies, like maybe Microsoft, Google, Red Hat, all these product companies, VMware, there are all nice, awesome startups. What exactly they're trying to solve. So how do you experience those things before you actually go out do the job? So that's the biggest question, and believe me, Linux distribution is part of the answer. So what happens, we have these thousands of Linux open source projects, and we need we need a medium where you can bring these projects to users so that users can use it, right? And the distributions become integration point. We package them together and deliver users to use it. So when you use a Ubuntu or Fedora or something, you are actually using thousands of open source projects. It's mostly open source project. Each RPM or each package are actually, might be part of a bigger project or maybe a single project. So what happens is, once you start using it, because Linux, the way it is architected, you get a lot of documentation, you have all the freedom to tweak the systems, you can see most of the information you normally don't see in Windows or other operating systems. Even Unix gives you a lot of information, but Linux, you have the source code with you. You can recompile bits. You can basically go to the original project and see what exactly happening there, which language it is written. So you get all the information. So I feel it's a very nice idea to pick a project like which I feel connected to. So for example, when I started, I was using a terminal called Guic. It used to be a very cool terminal, I started using it. I really liked the terminal. I found a couple of bugs. I said, okay, let me fix it. So I figured out, go to the Guic source code. So it used to use PyGTK framework. So I started learning PyGTK. Though I was not very successful, but it really helped me to understand how the GTK framework works. I had no idea, but that knowledge helped me doing other stuff. So if you're looking for a project to contribute, start using it. And then you figure out, gradually if you use thousands of projects, then gradually you might figure out 1 or 2 projects which really interest you. And you need that interest as your motivation, because the initial barrier is not that easy for all the projects, because the code quality and the people working on the project are pretty mature. There will be people working on it maybe for 10 years, 5 years, or more than that. So and the code is really in a good shape. It should not be like, you won't see a simple syntax thing. If you need to even line a single line of code, you might have to spend a couple of days, maybe a couple of weeks to understand the code. So believe me, that helps. It helps you to understand what exactly is happening in the project. It helps you as an engineer to understand, comprehend the whole problem set, what they're trying to do. So for me, if you want to, if you ask me, I will tell you, if you want to contribute to open source, one of the best way is to start using those projects and figure out which one you feel connected to, you feel like solving the problem, and start solving it. So basically, there are 2 projects which I contribute now from operating system point of view. One is Fedora, and which is one of the goal of Fedora distribution is to make sure all the latest code from all these open source projects land in Fedora. So when Linus Torvalds, so anybody who does not know Linus Torvalds here? Okay, Linus. Okay, everybody knows. So when Linus releases the new latest Linux kernel code, obviously new code would have more bugs, right? The old code normally gets through a lot of iteration of bug fixing, so it becomes more stable. So, but we need to make sure that even the new code goes to the users and users start using it so that you can figure out what is wrong with it, right? Fix it and makes it more stable. So Fedora is one of the distribution that picks the latest code from mainline kernel and put it in the distribution. So it's same for all the projects. So it picks out the latest Mozilla Firefox, it picks out the latest Thunderbird, it picks out latest GCC. I mean all the projects, it picks all the latest code. And any bug people find in Fedora, they fix it in the upstream project itself so that everybody, all the other distribution who are using the particular project gets benefited out of it. So there are a lot of variants to Fedora. If you go to Fedora website, you can see it, workstation, Fedora, server, and cloud. You might not now able to differentiate between these three. You have to spend some time to understand these three. And it's good. I mean, it's worth spending time. So like I think Somadev told us, there are different way you can contribute. It's just not about web only development. So even testing a project, you need to have basic understanding of how that project works. So you can start from testing and figure out what exactly the project is. Then if you feel like, okay, this is a good project which you feel connected, and if you say like, okay, I should contribute here, then start developing code. It's okay. So by the way, if you guys have any question, you can interrupt me. This should not be a problem. I don't want to bore you. Ping. Oh man. Okay, I'll do it again. Ping. Ping. Okay. See, I'm almost end of my presentation. So CentOS is actually made out of a RHEL. I mean, Red Hat Enterprise Linux. It's actually made of all the open source projects. So when RHEL get released from Red Hat also releases its source codes.
What's RHEL made of?
Red Hat Enterprise Linux? Yeah. So Red Hat Enterprise Linux is again a distribution which again it's made up of all the upstream projects, but they mostly based on Fedora. So they take a stable version of Fedora, productize it from Red Hat point of view to make Red Hat Enterprise Linux, and when it gets released, they also release its source code. I am pretty sure most of you did not know that, right? So still Red Hat makes money. Isn't it interesting? Yeah. So open source software doesn't mean that you have to sell it for free. It's not the freedom, the rules comes with it does not say that. It's all about freedom, but you can still make money out of it. There are various ways, obviously. But CentOS is totally rebuilt from Red Hat Enterprise Linux source code, and by a set of community. Nobody from Red Hat was involved in when building CentOS. It's just a bunch of folks who thought, okay, we don't have money to buy RHEL subscription, Red Hat Enterprise Linux subscription, but they are cool people, hackers. So they said, okay, fine, we have the source code, right? We can rebuild the operating system. So they rebuilt the operating system, and millions of people use CentOS. Debian and CentOS are the mostly used operating system in data centers. I mean, apart from the commercial distributions like Red Hat Enterprise Linux or maybe Ubuntu and stuff like that. So when you deploy stuff, so CentOS, one version of CentOS have a lifecycle of 10 years. So if you use CentOS 7, CentOS 7 gets maintained, all the security, bug fixes, everything maintains for 10 years. Well, Fedora is for only 13 months because it's a very latest, it basically takes the latest code, so they do not have the cycle to maintain so much. So they move ahead with every 13 months, and CentOS basically is maintained for 10 years. So if you want to deploy something on your maybe server or maybe web server or something which you want a very stable platform, CentOS is the one. And CentOS, there are special interest groups. You can just go search internet like CentOS special interest group to figure out what are the other stuff. I don't want to go to the details of it. So this is the reason I contribute to open source. I value my freedom, freedom to learn any technology, and learning. How does the learning happens? Just not reading about it. I want to test it. I want to do coding in it, enhance it, and maybe more coding, and then testing. All these things contribute to my learning. So I value my freedom. I want to learn what I want to, and not like somebody cannot tell me what to learn, what not to. Right? If I want to learn kernel, I'll go to Linux kernel, start reading Linux kernel code. My right to knowledge. Knowledge in software industry is just basically a code and the knowledge about the product, how to use it, right? So I feel I have a right to knowledge. If I want to learn about kernel, Microsoft or somebody should not tell me that you cannot know my kernel code because it's proprietary. No, I want to know it. That's my right as a person. It helps me to grow as a person because I talk to so many people in community, very different kind of people. Some of them are users. They have different use cases, which I never thought they would be a use case. So it helps me to grow as a software engineer, okay, oh, this is cool. He is using for this purpose. I never thought it can be used like that. And self-satisfaction of helping a lot of people. And when actually people mail you saying, thank you, thanks a lot, your thing actually helped and it fixed my issue, and you don't know this person, and this person doesn't know you, never seen you, you can only help him or her in an IRC channel or maybe through a mail. And in the ecosystem, everyone benefits. It adds up to your resume. You get awesome jobs. You do from your self-interest, so you get to the projects which interest you. So according to your knowledge, you get to that kind of projects in companies so that you do what you like, so that the job does not look like a job to you. It's like your hobby. And I spend a lot of time in my work, but I never felt like, I've been forced into it because I enjoy my job. So that leads up to my self-satisfaction. My personal life is good. I learn, grow as an engineer, and I feel good about it. That's it. So, questions?
So, when you say that you have a life cycle of 10 years for CentOS, right?
Sorry?
When you say that you have a life cycle of 10 years in CentOS, do you think it's all the pros, or you have cons to it as well?
No, it's a different use case. So if you are deploying an application, right, and the application sits on top of your platform, and platform is your operating system, you cannot expect the operating system to break, because if it breaks, your application goes down. That's a downtime, right? You lose money for that. I mean, money, lot of things. I mean, you cannot expect the banks to go down, right? You cannot expect the medical, let's say a hospital uses a basically application to keep track of medical records. You cannot expect them to go down, right? What happens? You're going for operation, suddenly the records go down. What do you do then? I mean, there are different pros and cons. So it depends on your use case. But let's say you want latest Python. Obviously, CentOS would not have latest Python, because it's basically it's in maintenance phase. And they won't put the latest Python because it will break certain things, right? So then it's a use case to use case basis. So then you go to a latest code, maybe Fedora, maybe there are special interest group in CentOS who actually take CentOS, only put the latest Python code top of it, just the latest Python, so that other parts of the operating system remains stable.
Yeah, exactly. So this is something what I was discussing with Soumya. So, say for an example, you are using some CentOS version which has been released 5 years back. Just take a rough number, and by that time probably the C groups and all other cool technologies were not in place. Now, considering that we really require these C groups and other stuffs, right?
Basically, you need a latest kernel.
Yeah, exactly. So I need a latest kernel, but so is there a way that you can?
So what happens there is, normally these problems are not very unique. Usually, a group of people want this kind of stuff. Then you go ahead in CentOS community and you see, basically you say that we need a special interest group which actually keep the whole CentOS as it is, but we will take the latest kernel and rebuild into it.
And how do you release that? Like,
how do you release? You can release. That's where the community comes to the picture, because they have tooling to is a build system to build the kernel, and then you have tooling to create ISOs, and you have the delivery mechanisms like to put into HTTP location.
So that lands in a separate SIG. Is that the case? Like,
you have to basically, the group will own the life cycle of it. So
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So if I'm a Windows user and I really want to try out Linux because everybody keeps telling me Linux is cool, how do I start and how easy will it be for me to try out Linux?
yeah, it's pretty easy. So I mean, you can use how many people know about VirtualBox? Okay, so you can try VirtualBox, right? You can install VirtualBox and install a Linux, or there is something called Live USB. So Live USB is something like you put the operating system, Linux operating system in a USB, and boot your laptop from that particular USB. So it does not affect your hard disk. So whatever Windows operating system or whatever operating system you have, it would be intact. But you can temporarily use the Linux operating system, and can figure out whether your wireless card and everything is working fine. So the interesting part is there used to be a time when you install Linux, then you have to install a lot of drivers, but it happened exactly opposite nowadays. So if you try to install Windows, just try reinstalling Windows in your laptop and you see how difficult it is. And try installing Linux on it, you see how easy it is. It's become so easy, but a lot of people have not realized it. I mean, I have multiple experience of people stuck with Windows and they are even not able to use the laptop properly. So yeah, so what happened is, I mean, one of my cousin sisters, she had a laptop. It was a very old laptop. It has only 2 gig of RAM, and she was using Windows. It was become so slow that you open a Explorer, it used to take at least 10 minutes to come up. Then I said, okay, what exactly you are using? Windows. I said, okay, let's install Fedora on top of it. So Fedora has different spins. Basically, GNOME is one GUI which it needs little bit of more RAM. But there are like XFC, LXC, which is like takes really less RAM to actually boot the operating system. So we installed XFC, and everything worked out of the box. We just had to install the operating system. And guess what? She got a awesome laptop. She told me, it's like a new laptop. I can open the browser. I click it, it opens it. So it's so cool. I mean, you cannot do it in Windows. One of my friends had ThinkPad, and he was struggling to reinstall the ThinkPad. And I said, okay, dude, why don't you try Linux? He said, seriously? I said, yeah, ThinkPad, Lenovo normally upstreams all the drivers. So you do not have to install anything. You just install a Linux box. And he installed Linux and started working his ThinkPad. He became a big-time Python developer now. And he moved 3 companies. He's jumping, just Python development. Because in Linux, all the programming languages by default comes in the terminal. In Windows, if you're using Windows, you have to install Python on top of it if you want to become a Python programmer. I mean, Windows is not bad. I'm not saying it's bad. It's good in its own way, but I think Linux, as in free software and open source, is better.
I agree to the driver part of the story, especially.
It's really cool.
It used to be the other way around.
Exactly.
Previously, you had to bug yourself with the installing driver on Linux.
Yeah,
Now
if you don't believe me, try reinstall your laptop, Windows laptop. Seriously, I give you a challenge. At your own risk. I'm pretty sure you have to go to the showroom, Dell or whatever showroom, and they will tell you, okay, sir, you have to leave your laptop because I have to download the drivers to install it.
There's no risk. If you are not sure, use the live USB, whatever you mentioned. Go try out with the live USB and try browsing the websites or try playing media or anything else. Everything should ideally work out. Your sound driver, Wi-Fi driver, and everything should ideally work out anyway. Thanks.
No, good.
Thank you.
Thanks.